have all experienced disappointment at some point in our lives, from the smallest disappointments to the absolute most biggest devastating disappointments. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through what it feels like, the reason that we're disappointed, specifically 4 reasons why we are so disappointed. And then the hope comes at the end of this video. And I'm going to be giving you some really practical ways to set yourself up to never feel that disappointment ever again. I'm Candice Bester from Grit Grow, and I'm so thrilled to be bringing you our 14th episode of our Grit Community series. So what does that feeling of disappointment feel like? Well, it has a range of feelings, and it could be the smallest disappointment, like I'm looking forward to something. I've been really looking forward to something that's happening on Friday night, and at the last minute, the plans are cancelled. And so it's like, oh, I was looking so forward to that. But you're able to let it go quite quickly, make new plans, and shift. And then there's medium disappointments, and then they range all the way to what I call the biggest, most devastating disappointments. So you've been looking forward to something, and maybe you probably invested a lot into it. So you've invested time into it. You've invested yourself, maybe money you've invested in it. And you have overcome challenges, and you've pushed through the hard times, and you're right at the finish line, and something happens and the whole thing doesn't work, or it just falls through. I think it's safe to say that that is one of the hardest things you are ever going to have to deal with. It is soul destroying. It is crushing. It is devastating. It leaves you feeling like, what is the point? Like, why am I even on this earth? You question everything. You question who you are. You question your self-worth. You question your purpose. And it can really spiral you into a really dark place, which can be very hard to get up from. But I'm here to tell you, and the reason that I've entitled this video, The Gift of Disappointment, is because I personally know this feeling so well. And one of the biggest disappointments I've ever experienced in my life, when I look back now, turned out to literally be the biggest gift I've ever received. And it's not just because I have a positive mindset. It's not just because I look at the glass half full. It literally has changed who I am. It has changed how I perceive myself. And it has changed how I do things in my business, which has changed my business. So it really was a gift. I'd like to share this experience with you so that to give you some sense of hope that no matter how hard it is for you right now, that I promise you at the end of this, there is a gift. So I had identified a big client probably about 2 years ago that I was really keen on getting. I knew that this client put a lot of money into development of staff and training. I knew that they had big budgets for it. I also knew that they were struggling in many areas, so I knew that I could help them. And so I printed their logo and I put it on my vision board. And every day I visualized it. And anyway, it took a while, took 5, 6, 7 months. And eventually I got a contact. And again, it was so much celebration because there's nothing like coincidence, only synchronicities. And I got the meeting. And it went really well. Anyway, it still took months and months of invested time, and time is money. Eventually, I got to the top of the company, and the day came where I got this miraculous phone call. And I'm sure you can see the sarcasm on my face. But at the time, it really was a miraculous phone call. And it went like this. Candice, you're not going to believe it. We've just had a board level meeting, and we have decided that we're going to train the first 40 people. And can you please send us the invoice? We've put aside money for this. Well, that was the finish line. I still remember putting the phone down and just screaming. I phoned every single person that I know. I got home, I put the invoice out, I sent it off, and I was like, woohoo, my life is going to change from this moment. What had I invested in this? Well, after this deal came through, I was going to have like a 3 or 4 or 5 months that didn't need to worry about finances. I was going to be able to be put in touch with similar companies because word of mouth is how the business spreads. And really, like, all the hard work had brought me to this moment. And so all that needed to happen now was they needed to pay the deposit and we would get started. We'd even reserved the dates. That's how it was going to happen. And I started to follow up on the invoice and I got no reply. And I started to call and they didn't answer my call. And I sent messages and they did not read them. And then a couple of weeks later of me starting to lose hope, not really knowing what was going on, feeling really confused, I'll never forget the day I got an email. It was a one-liner. Sorry, we can't do this right now. I remember the blood draining from my head because I hadn't really paid attention to other things that could have been bringing in money because I didn't need to. This deal was going to come through and then everything was going to be sorted. My dreams were all going to come true. And so the feeling in that moment, the anxiety, the feeling like somebody had taken a sledgehammer and smashed my entire world, that's what happened in that moment. Well, fast forward to today, and I'm so grateful that didn't happen because now, like I said earlier, everything has changed. So I'd like to take us through the reasons that we are devastated, and it is important that we understand where this is coming from before we can get to the how to change it. So the reason that we are devastated, for me, there's 4 main reasons. And the first one is we have a fantasy of how or what was going to happen when this happened. And so the fantasy is the problem. Why is it a problem? Because it's the future. And because when anything is in the future, it's a don't know. So we have also put out the subconscious message that when this happens, I will be happy. When this happens, I won't have to worry anymore. When this happens, I will have arrived. Okay, so basically we've been living in the future for this entire time. And the lesson for me in that is when you pin something on a don't know, you really aren't living for now. And I'm going to get to that at the end again. So pin that part. So the fantasy, just to recap, the fantasy is the problem because it's in the future and it's a don't know. And then our fantasy or our entire dream or hope has come crumbling down. And that's what's causing the disappointment. Reason number 2 is we have a set of expectations of how life should be, how people should be. And when life doesn't turn out to be that, or when people don't show up like we want them to, we get disappointed. And this has been hard for me to learn, but I know now that you can't expect other people to be anything other than what they are. Byron Katie speaks about fighting reality. It's like they can't do what you're expecting of them, but you fight it in your mind by saying they should be different, they should be different, they should be different. And so you are causing yourself so much turmoil. So we need to stop expecting people to show up differently if they are unable to. We need to stop expecting them to be different to who they really are. And when we drop these expectations, and I just want to be clear, I'm not saying don't have expectations, but rather have expectations of yourself that you can meet. I think it's crazy to have expectations of other people when they are unable to do it, and then that's what's causing our unhappiness. That's what's causing our suffering. And that's where the disappointment comes in. Okay, so number 3 is we're trying to control everything that is not in our control. And I know I bring this up a lot in our videos. But really, when you get this, your life is going to be a lot easier. Again, Byron Katie, in her book called Loving What Is, you need to get that book and read it. She speaks about 3 types of business, and I want you to look at this slide. So there's God's business, there's people's business, and then there's our business. And if you have to think about that, so God's business is really whether a deal falls through or not. Like, that's out of our control. It's bigger than us. We're not the decision makers. We're not in control of that final thing happening. God's business is things like when relationships don't work out. God's business is things like, the things that we spend so much time worrying and obsessing about, like, I don't know, load shedding, ESCOM, the elections, poverty, war, all those things. That's God's business. Then the other business that she speaks about is people's business, and this really has anything to do with anybody else. So it is how people show up, how they dress, how they treat us, what they wear, whether they get back to us or they don't, whether they show up, if they're on time, if they're late, anything to do with anybody other than ourselves. And then the third category is ourselves. Okay, so she says, the only thing we are in control of are ourselves. And so when you know this, you can start to notice when you're trying to control things that aren't in your control, and then bring yourself back to, and rather spend that energy on changing stuff that's going to end up changing. The weirdest thing is when you change yourself, when you change your effort, which I'm going to get to in a moment, when you're changing all the stuff that is in your control, the outcome changes drastically. But you don't do it because of the outcome changing. And then the fourth reason is you're focusing on outcome and not effort. And this is the biggest problem. And when I say biggest, like the most gigantic problem ever. Because the outcome is not up to us and it's not in our control. And I have thought about this and I thought about this, and I think the reason is that we as children, our outcome is what is rewarded or punished. So we stand up on stage and we get a soccer award because we were the best soccer player. So now we're good enough because we got a certificate. So what are we busy celebrating? The outcome. I wish we could change that to, I'm so proud of myself. In order to get that certificate, I had to show up every week. I had to be self-disciplined. I had to be consistent. I had to arrive even when I didn't feel like it. And so I'm proud of the effort I've had to put in, because that's going to shift our identity. We're going to go back and go, that's a part of who I am. And guess what? The more we do that, the more that's the effort we're going to put in. Again, that's what's going to change the outcome. So what is it that you are busy focusing on? That's just a little thought that I want you to think about for a moment before I go on to the last section, is where is your focus? Ask yourself that. Where is your focus? What are you focusing on? If you feel disappointed all the time, or if you are feeling like nothing's ever good enough, and if you feel like you're getting into bed at night and what have you even accomplished in the day, you're probably focusing on outcome and not effort. So now that you know the part that you've had to play in this disappointment and the real reason that you are disappointed, I hope that you're starting to get a feeling of hope. And the reason I say that is because when we shift what's in our control, everything shifts. And can you see that something much better could be on offer if we just changed us, just us. So lastly, how do we set ourselves up to never experience disappointment ever again? Okay, so there's a couple of steps here. So firstly, you need to set different goals for yourself. So you're going to set effort goals and not outcome goals. And if you are giving your best to your effort, you are going to feel incredible. And you're not going to keep chasing the next and the next and the next, and you're actually going to start enjoying your life right now as it is without anything changing. So what are those kind of things you could be setting intentions for, or basing your effort on? So, there's so many things in a day that are not in our plan. Some of them are putting out fires. Some of them are breathing through triggers. Some of them are helping a friend when you didn't know that. So you don't even look at that stuff because it wasn't on your to-do list. So noticing and setting goals on our efforts is what you're going to start to do right now. Maybe make a list, and when you get into bed at night, look through your list and ask yourself, how did I do in those departments? And again, make sure that it's not in the outcome, it is only in the effort. And if you are showing up every day, that's something to be celebrated. That's something you need to be proud of. If you are able to adjust and you were planning to do this and then something else came in instead and you were able to, that needs to be celebrated. If you are able to help somebody when you're already busy and overwhelmed and you don't know how to, but you do, those are the kind of things you need to be looking at. So you need to set different goals, and your goals need to be around your effort, and that's going to come from you. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to rewire your brain, and it's so sneaky. You need to notice when you're attaching to outcome. How do you know if you're attaching to outcome? You start to feel anxious. You start to push harder. You start to make more calls. You start to work faster. Your whole energy is about pushing. Because very, very deeply inside, you're scared. You're scared that if this doesn't pull through, something bad is going to happen. So when you notice, in step 2, when you notice that there's this resistance and pushing, and then you can take a step back and go, what am I trying to control that isn't in my control? How do I stop doing this? And how do I shift this? And then you just start doing something that is in your control. And it's like I said to you, it's sneaky, but you are able to notice it. And then slowly but surely, you're going to be able to, this is going to become your new norm. It's going to become a new habit. Okay, the next thing that I want you to do is to make gratitude an absolute practice. So when you are looking to the future, or a relationship that you want in the future, or a business thing, or more money, or a bigger car, or a better house, when you're looking to the future, it means that you are completely feeling a lack. And in my opinion, one of the worst feelings in the world is a lack feeling. It means that there's something missing. It's like there's a hole inside of you. And how do you combat that? You don't wait for that, because you will be chasing that forever. You come back into the present moment and you just fill yourself with the abundance of everything that you have right now. You notice what you have and you say thank you as often as possible. You put the kettle on and you say thank you for electricity. You fill up the water and you say thank you for running clean water. You have a moment with your kid and you notice the sparkle in their eyes and you say thank you for my healthy child. Because there are gazillions of things that are going right in your life right now. You are so blessed. You are so blessed. You are so blessed. I actually feel quite tearful when I think about that, because I've spent years missing that in the hope that something else was coming. And finally I realized that all along I've just been held and protected and loved and blessed. And that is all I want from you. And so lastly, just know that the feelings are always valid. They are always valid. When you feel the feeling coming in, give it attention. Tell little old yourself, Candace, this is really hard. You were looking forward to that and it didn't work out. But you were attaching to outcome, and so shift back into noticing, gratitude, shift back into what is in your control. And I know that when you spend that time, I know this, it's a deep knowing inside of me, that when you spend the time that you were trying to control things that aren't in your control, and instead you spend it on yourself, everything is going to change. Your whole entire life is going to change. And if nothing else, you're going to feel happier right now and not wait for that happiness. And what is in your control? I've put this in many videos before. Absolutely everything everything from the time you wake up in the morning to the best that you get out of your day, to how you treat people, to the food you put in your body, to how you hydrate yourself, the exercise that you get, your energy levels because you're looking after your sleep, to how everything that is in your control is going to change your life. And when you focus on that, you feel so much better. And when I say better, I'm meaning you feel more confident, you feel more worthy, you feel full, you feel abundant rather than lack or scarcity. So I really hope that this video helped. I feel like I came through with a whole lot of passion, but it's only because this is something that I had to learn the really hard way. And now that I know it, my life on every level is different, and I really want that for you. So please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please share this with your loved ones because, like I said in the beginning, we all have experienced disappointment at some stage in our lives.